What's up, guys, and welcome to the first video on the HM Report. I'm Bryson Harris Myers, and let's get into this. If you're a Minnesota Vikings fan, you would know, obviously, you guys had a alright year last year. Not the season you had with Sam Darnold, but obviously with a new quarterback and a new person leading your offense, that's the best you can get. Now, obviously, we know what's happening in Minnesota. You have J.J. McCarthy, and then you have Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray signed a one-year deal in Minnesota in the offseason, and they both will be competing for the starting job to who will go out in week one and be the starting quarterback. And really, it's how long will that last for? So we look at, obviously, how they have performed so far in the offseason. And J.J. McCarthy has made some pretty impressive throws on the 7-on-7 and 11-on-11 drills. Many of the coaches have continued to praise the command of offense and his improved decision-making going into his third year in the NFL. And also how J.J. McCarthy is continuing to splitting the first reps with Kyler Murray. And then for Kyler Murray, it's how he drew attention to his deep ball accuracy and his athleticism, especially from his injury last year, not playing the rest of the season. And early in minicamp, he threw some interceptions on 7-on-7, but showed that he can remain firm in the QB competition while learning new offense and potentially going out in week one and defeating J.J. McCarthy at the starting job. So we look at the difference between Kyler Murray and J.J. McCarthy. And obviously the big difference between those two is, one, for Kyler Murray, he has more NFL experience. He brings more to the table, as if the game was on the line, who would you trust more to go out? The guy who has 87 career starts, or the quarterback who played a little over 10 games in his second year because he didn't play his first year due to injury, And then for Kyler Murray is his mobility, one of the league's current great scrambling quarterbacks, able to extend the play and have big explosive gains outside the pocket. And then not just his running ability, but then his strong arm talent, how he can throw from different angles and then be able to throw and run. And then also his big play ability. Going from Marvin Harrison to then Justin Jefferson and then Jordan Addison, you then have the chance to make big plays, bigger plays than you were able to make in Arizona. And then his production that he's already proved time and time again, able to throw for over 3,500 yards when he's healthy, when he's at a high level, and then you have his cons. It's learning a new offense. He hasn't had to learn a new offense like that in Arizona, because pretty much he was the commander-in-chief of the offense, and the offense was built around him. Now you're in a new team where you're competing for the starting job. You're learning a new playbook, a new environment. And then, as well, since your ACL injury, you've been inconsistent. Your rushing impact, and then the overall play that hasn't matched your early, how you were early in your career. And then you have your turnover concerns. How you did throw some interceptions early in the minicamp, but though the coaches have not viewed them as major setbacks. While in a real game, if you did throw those interceptions, that might be, okay, maybe we'll have to take you out for J.J. McCarthy. And then we go to J.J. McCarthy, and we look at some of the pros and cons that he has, and some of the pros is that he's already familiar with Kevin O'Connell's offense. He goes into his third year, so he already has a clear understanding and advantage over Kyler Murray, who's coming into Minnesota trying to learn this offense under Kevin O'Connell. And then his improved fundamentals going into his junior year. And that's obviously his continuous, improvement that coaches have been saying. His improvements in his processing, his decision-making, and obviously how his ball placement is. And then you have your chemistry with your number one receiver, Justin Jefferson. How they trained together throughout the offseason and, improved their timing and route anticipation. And obviously they played with each other the last 2 years, and obviously that connection, it just gets better and better. And then you also have some long-term investment in your work ethic, J.J. McCarthy, how the coaches and teammates are constantly praising his preparation and his competitive mindset in this QB battle. How he knows that there's a lot on the table as the former first round pick if he gets the job and if he becomes QB2. And also this long-term investment from not just the coaches and the players, but from the fans. Again, knowing that he is the former first-round pick that they had. And that he has the chance and still can be their franchise quarterback. But then some cons is obviously the limited NFL success and experience, going into his first full healthy season from his injury that he sustained his rookie year in the training area time. He had, obviously in 2025, he was inconsistent. Had trouble with accuracy issues and decision making, which led to some injuries and being out for some time. With Carson Wentz, and then with Max Brosmer, he missed some games, which set him back. And then obviously again with the less experience that J.J. McCarthy has, which having a lot more fewer snaps than Murray, and then also struggling in high pressure situations, whether it be third and long, game on the line. He doesn't have a lot of experience with that. And then the pressure of expectations. What it means to be what should be the franchise quarterback, where every mistake he makes in a game, whether it's an interception or a fumble, or his performance is the reason why they lost the game, would receive heavy scrutiny. Then we look at who has the edge on certain things. For Kyler Murray, his advantages is his experience, athleticism, his playmaking ability, is already his proven NFL resume. Whether it's also NFL, but also college. But also in the NFL, you gotta realize when he is healthy, especially when he was early in his career, he took the Cardinals, I believe, to a 7-0 record for their first loss. But also, he's been to the Pro Bowl multiple times. He has pushed Arizona to playoffs and potential playoff runs. And then for J.J. McCarthy, obviously, his advantage is the better command of the offense. His stronger chemistry with his teammates, with T.J. Hockenson, with Aaron Jones, with Justin Jefferson, with Jordan Addison. His higher long-term upside inside, not just Minnesota's system, but also Kevin O'Connell's offense. And then his continuous improvement throughout the offseason. This will obviously decide who will be the starting quarterback going out to week 1, to who will lead the Vikings to potential victory this year. But obviously, if you look at what will decide who will be the starting quarterback for Minnesota, will obviously be, performance in the preseason games. We got to watch out for that. We got to see how they do on the 2-minute drills, the red zone, and third down efficiency and performance. We got to see how accurate and how their timing is with their available receivers. How they hold on to the ball, how long they command their offense to contain the ball. Meaning, how many times are they avoiding turnovers? How many times are they losing the football? Is that quarterback turnover proficient? But then also the command that they have with the offense and their pre-snap adjustments. Are they seeing things that can make or break their play or their drive? And how is the offense being commanded under them? That's all the big things that these coaches will look for between those two. And if you ask me who will be the starting quarterback going out into week 1, I do believe maybe J.J. McCarthy does have the lead. I think J.J. McCarthy might be the starting quarterback going out to week 1. But I think it's very, very close. And it's too close to call who will be the starting quarterback. But again, it will all come down to OTAs and training camp. And then preseason games. You might see a lot of them in preseason. And then when they're finalizing the 53-man, you might see Kevin O'Connell come out and say, hey, this quarterback will be coming out and starting week 1. But tell me, what do you think, who will be the starting quarterback? Will it be J.J. McCarthy? Will it be Kyler Murray? Or maybe will they do a thing where they don't have a starting quarterback going on to week 1, and they're going to do a week by week to see who is the starting quarterback. And also this, if they do decide on a starting quarterback, How long will that quarterback start before there will be questions and doubts of potentially benching them for their backup? How many games will J.J. McCarthy be for his mistakes from this past year comes back? And same thing for Kyler Murray. He's already been in that same position. How he's already was benched for Jacoby Brissett last year. How many games before his mistakes come back to where if he was starting quarterback, J.J. McCarthy gets his job back? This is all for today's video. Thank you for tuning in and have a great day.